Buonasera, Picciotti. I'm Mimmo Quartararo, and tonight I'll tell you about the day the King of Chicago got shipped to the Rock, stripped to a number and a bunk, left alone with his fraying mind and a banjo that couldn't protect him. San Francisco Bay, 98. Fog like wet wool. The ferry lights blurred like wet tears. I had a maintenance badge that wasn't mine, and a job that stank of museum glass and rich men's vanity. The Mark wanted a relic. Capone's banjo from the Alcatraz exhibit. Don't ask why. Some paisan in Chicago with a suite full of trophies and a hole inside him only history could plug. The contact tells me, you go in, you crack the case, you get out. Easy way. Nothing's easy on that island. Even the gulls look like guards. I knew that banjo already, fig you. I'd seen it once when I was young in Brooklyn, in a photograph greasy from so many fingers. The photo belonged to an old Irish watchman named O'Rourke, who drank Campari in our club like he was born in Naples. He'd worked Alcatraz back when the concrete still smelled fresh. A Z85, he told me, his hands shaking as he tapped the picture. Al Capone, the king who learned to count steps instead of money. He said the warden, Johnston, smiled like a mortician when Capone tried charm. My influence, Capone tells him, goes where I go. The warden. Not here, Mr. Capone. Boom. Door shuts. Silence eats your name. I didn't believe most stories back then. But later, doing a nickel in Terminal Island, I bunked a month with a milk-eyed stick-up man who'd done time on the Rock as a kid. He said he heard the foghorn through everything. He said Capone got up 6 a.m. like all of them, made his bunk tight enough to drum on it, stood by the bars, hands behind his back like a schoolboy. He looked small, the kid told me, like the suit didn't fit no more. Capone worked laundry, folded shirts till his fingers bled dye. Tried to sling a smile at gods, no one bit. Money on that island was there. Rules were iron. There was a day in the laundry, the kid said, when a man named Lucas took a swing and made his point with a homemade shiv. The king bled like anyone else. They said Capone kept his mouth shut, took his medicine, took his time in the hole. When they pulled him out, he had a different look, like he tasted his own shadow. He found the band after that, the Rock Islanders. Tenor banjo, they said, shiny like a cheap wedding ring. Sunday wreck, full of hymns, blues, the kind of songs that keep a man from breaking his teeth on his own tongue. I pictured those fingers, the same ones that signed bootleg ledgers, searching for a note that didn't hurt. Mamma mia. Imagine that cell, the most watched in America, like a fish tank for a shark gone slow. He could feel the stairs more than bars, and at night he got the shakes, all that sickness gnawing at his head, the past chewing. He plucked on the banjo to drown the ghosts. It only made them dance. Fast forward to my job on the Rock. I'd greased a dock worker and borrowed his jacket. Me and Tori, my cousin, Blood and trouble since we could both lift a toolbox. We timed the patrols by the ferry horn. 3 short blasts meant the swing shift started. We had 8 minutes to slip through a service door, down a corridor that smelled like damp pennies. Our code was simple. If I touched my nose, he watched the hall. If he tugged an ear, we scrammed. Coded rituals keep a man from dying stupid. The display room was quiet, the glass full of other people's sins. In the center, that banjo. Up close it was uglier than legend. Nicked, the neck worn smooth where a left hand begged mercy. I popped the case with a suction cup, the kind jewelers use. The alarm whispered alive and then went back to sleep. I told you, Amoni, nothing's easy. But sometimes it feels like you were born for a lock. I lifted the banjo and my stomach turned. It was heavier than it should be. And the smell, old sweat, polish, something metallic. I swung the back plate with a jeweler's screwdriver and found what O'Rourke had told me about one winter night over espresso and grappa. He hid it where the music lived, the old man had said, tapping that greasy photograph. Inside the resonator, between wood and skin, there was a folded scrap of linen. Not money, a note, faded pencil scrawl. It looks like Alcatraz has got me licked. Capone said that once. And either he wrote it for himself or someone wrote it for him when he forgot who he was. Turi went pale. Paisa, we gotta move. The mark don't pay extra for poetry. He was right. The buyer wanted the object, not the ghost in it. But I couldn't help it. I read that line again and heard the foghorn. The loudspeakers crackled somewhere. Security chatter like bees. I tucked the linen back where I found it, closed the plate, and wrapped the banjo and felt. We walked out like we belonged. In this life, posture is half your alibi. We met the buyer in a marina apartment that smelled like money and disinfectant. He was a clean-jawed Chicago type with lacquered hair and a smile that said he'd never bled for anything. He put the case on his dining table. "You boys did good," he said. But his eyes were on the door, not us. 2 muscleheads in cheap suits moved like refrigerators with feet. Betrayal has a shape. You learn it. I tucked my hand near my belt and Turi caught my signal. Right ear tug, our code for this gets loud. "Before you count your chickens, Capo," I said, tapping the case. "This bird's got a message in its belly. You sure you want that burden?" He frowned. The kind that means, I'm too young to be haunted. I popped the plate, slid the linen across to him. He squinted. The color dropped out of his face, just a little. The note wasn't worth a dime, but it weighed 60 years of fear. He waved his hands, told the fridges to back off. We got paid, in full. Sometimes even the heartless fear a man who confessed to losing. Back in Brooklyn, we celebrated quiet. Ziarina cooked Sunday gravy, the kind that holds the table together. No one said Capone's name. He wasn't Sicilian. but he cast a shadow that crossed oceans. Zio Nino poured wine, told us about Omerta, like a bedtime lullaby, and a noose at once. Silence keeps us, Figio, he said, until it sinks us. That night, I took the banjo string we'd borrowed from the case, a thin steel E, and wound it around my wrist like a bracelet. I don't know why. A reminder, maybe. Even kings tune their own handcuffs sometimes. Years later, I went back as a tourist. Paid full price like a chump. Rode out with families and cameras. In the cell block, the air still tasted of bleach and old prayers. A guide recited facts. Laundry, the band, the stabbing. I walked past the cell where the king had slept and saw the wear on the floor where a man paced, counting steps, because counting dollars didn't matter. Outside, the wind sang through the bars like a forgotten hymn. I thought of O'Rourke, shaky hands alive again. Of the milk-eyed kid. Of that linen confession like a white flag folded into music. Al Capone learned what all of us learn sooner or later. Power is loud. Time is louder. You can buy judges, cops, half a city. But in the right room, under the right light, your name is just a breath. And your kingdom is a plank bed in a plastic bowl. The banjo wasn't a crown. It was a metronome. Tick, tick, tick. Practice the song of your cage until you forget the words to anything else. So listen, Paisa. Betrayal isn't always a man with a gun at your back. Sometimes it's your own legend turning on you, making you think you can strut through a place where even the gulls keep their heads down. Honor? That's what you hold when the room goes quiet and the foghorn starts up and there's no one left to play for but yourself. Keep your mouth shut, your hands clean as you can, and count your steps. On the rock, on the street, same thing. In the end, we all answer to a simple rhythm. And if we're lucky, we leave one note that sounds true.